Hey guys, welcome back to our channel. We are so happy that you're here.
We are going to be talking today about how to rock your long distance relationship, go over a little bit of our long distance relationship, and then go through the big question, should you be in a long distance relationship?
Yeah, and then just some tips and tricks that we found helpful for ourselves.
Definitely. So starting off, Emily and I are now married, spoiler alert, so it worked for us. Long distance was fine. And how long were we long distance?
We dated for almost 5 years, and 3.5 years of our dating relationship, we were long distance.
So a lot.
More than half.
A lot of long distance, and that was because I decided to go to college in a different state. So,
which sucked.
Way to go for me. But basically, we started dating. I was a junior, she was a sophomore, so we had about a year and a half before I left to college.
Yes, that helped.
So there was a year and a half where we were not long distance, and that was awesome. We got to go on our first dates. We got to know each other really well over that year and a half.
Yeah.
But then college came, and I decided to move out of state for college. Didn't really, I did decide, but it was the right choice. The college was good. Everything worked out, and so for the next 3 years, not 3.5, maybe 3.5. Next 3 years, I was 5 hours away from Emily, and it was kind of difficult. So you want to talk about kind of that first year and how it was difficult?
So the first year was very difficult because we had never been long distance before, and he was very busy with his first year of college.
Didn't get to go home much?
No, not at, like, hardly ever. And so that really sucked, but it really helped me realize how much I depended on him, and so that...
And helped to not depend on me. You got it. That's the important part.
Yeah.
But it was definitely difficult. Even for me, I didn't get to go home see my family. I grew up at home, had a great family, and so I was always hanging out with them. Always hung out with Emily for the past like year and a half, and then I went to college, and I was like, wait, Emily's not here.
Don't know anybody.
I didn't know one person at the college I went to because I decided to just go out of state. But it was great, and so that was the first year. Over the next 2 years, I graduated in 3 years, so my college experience was a little bit shorter, and Emily moved to college a year after I moved to college, since I'm a year older than her. And so she moved an hour and a half closer to my college, so rather than being 5 hours away, we were only 3.5. And so that was really, really nice. But that is kind of a brief overview of our long distance dating summary, and then of course we ended up getting married. So long distance. Yeah, long distance. I had to plan the engagement, and we planned the wedding long distance. Everything was long distance.
But it was so worth it. Like,
yes, the wait was definitely worth it.
Yes.
So now we're going to be talking about kind of
the tips that we found to be helpful
if you're in a long distance relationship, and also if you
should even be in a long distance relationship
or a relationship at all.
So
I'm gonna before we kind of get into that, I'm gonna let Emily just explain what the purpose of dating is, or what the purpose of being in a relationship is.
So I think we're believers, and so I think, for us, our main goal was for marriage. Like, that was the main point for dating. And so I think that was really a question that we had to examine ourselves and figure out, okay, is this somebody that I would potentially marry later on down the road?
That's good English there.
I know, I'm really struggling.
Let's talk about back when the Bible was written. There really wasn't this thing called dating like we see today, right? We go from talking, sliding into DMs, talking, now we're in a relationship, or dating, now we're in a relationship, and it gets progressively more serious. A lot of marriages, almost all, were arranged marriages back in the day, and that's just how it worked. So there's no actual verse we can go to that's like, you should date someone for 2 years before getting married or anything like that. But what we can do is look to the Bible and take out principles and kind of derive, not to our own taste, but go, okay, if that is what the Lord wants us to do here, wouldn't it be what he wants us to do over here? And so there are a few things where it talks about being in relationships, maybe not dating, but being in relationships. And one of those is being equally yoked. You guys may have heard that term before. Some people don't know what it comes from. Basically, back in the day, they would take 2 ox, or oxen, I think is the plural, and they would tie them up with this board that ran across their neck, so they would keep the same pace. And if one was stronger than the other, that one would pull and the board would kind of hurt the, I think, I haven't looked this up. This is like, I remember hearing this years ago, so I hope this is right. But like it would pull the other ox and it would hurt them, and that would be the unequally yoked. One was stronger, one was weaker, one was bigger, and one was smaller. And so the Bible tells us to be equally yoked in our relationships, and what that means, if you are a believer and a follower of Jesus Christ, you should be looking for someone who is a believer.
Also believing the same thing as you are.
And follower of Jesus Christ, and is running that same race. I mean, that should be, if you're a follower of Christ, that is your main mission of your life. And if you got someone who's running the opposite direction, they're going to slow you down.
Yeah, it's
you know?
not good.
And so it's not good. So before you even think, hey, should we do long distance, you should think, should we be in a relationship to begin with?
Yeah.
And if the answer to that question is yes, Emily has an awesome verse as well, talking about kind of helping figuring out whether you should be in a relationship with that person.
So if you've ever heard of the fruits of the Spirit, it's basically just something that believers should have and should be showing to the world. And so it's Galatians 5:22 through 23. It says, but the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, forbearance, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. Against such things there is no law. So if you see any of these characteristics, or if you see your significant other striving for those characteristics, then I think that would be a good
starting point.
Yeah.
You can be someone who is not a believer and still show some of those qualities. And so don't just look at those qualities and go, man, they're patient, so they're probably a Christian, I should date them. Or they're patient and they go to church, so, you know, that's it, whatever. Going to church doesn't make someone a believer just as much as sitting in a garage doesn't make me a car. That was terrible. But anyway, so you should really sit down, pray about it. Is this someone I could date? And if the answer is yes, if people around you that are that care about you and are wise counsel say, man, that's a great person as well, then that's when you're like, hey, we could like look into this. And they also probably should like you. That should probably be a good starting point. But start there, but also examine yourself. Are you ready to be in a relationship, let alone a long distance relationship? Relationships are very tough to begin with. Long distance just adds another variable in there that makes it difficult. And so some of the things you should be looking at is your age. Are you at a point, we started dating young, I do not recommend that. It worked out, I'm thankful, but we made some mistakes. We put ourselves through unnecessary temptation. We sinned, we still sin, but unnecessarily so because we were so young and immature. And so I would recommend, if you're really serious about dating someone to get married, probably should wait until you're almost ready to get married. Like, wait to that point when it's like, hey, and if I find out that this person is who I can spend the rest of my life with, then why wait? Why would you want to wait anymore? I didn't want to wait anymore. That's why we're 20, we got married at 21 and 20. I mean, we were young, still are very young. And so I would look at yourself first. Are you ready to be in a serious, committed relationship? If the answer is yes, if people around you that you trust and are following after Jesus agree with that, then press on and keep going. So we've answered the question of, should you be in a relationship? Should you be in a long distance relationship? Is the next kind of question. Well, I guess we did answer that. And now we're going to go into kind of our tips, tricks, what helped us, and how you can kind of, you know, keep it going.
So I have about 4 points that I wanted to share with you guys. The number one is trust. I feel like that was a big thing with long distance. You can't be with the person all the time. You're not 30 minutes away from the person, and they have separate lives from you. And so just knowing that, like, hey, I know Grant loves me, and I know that if he's hanging out with a big group of friends, like, that's okay, and that's great that he is in fellowship with other people. And so I just had to examine myself and realize that I don't know what I was going for. I think just knowing that I didn't have to know whatever he was doing. I didn't have to know every single thing that he was doing. And I knew that I ultimately trusted him, and I trusted the Lord with our relationship. So if I don't know, if our relationship ended up going separate ways and we didn't end up needing to be together, then that was something that I needed to trust the Lord with, and knowing that, hey, it's not a for sure thing that we are going to get married. Like, yes, we both want it, but God could end up changing our plans. So just knowing that I trusted the Lord and I trusted Grant.
Definitely. So that was a big thing for Emily, is being able to put her trust that everything would be okay, and that I love her enough, obviously not to, you know, start looking for other girls or something crazy like that. For me, Emily was still in high school when we started the long distance. I was going to a college where I knew no one. So that first semester, I was meeting all kinds of new people. I was busy. I was getting involved in clubs, organizations, and so a lot of my time was taken up. And so that was kind of a nice thing because I didn't have a ton of downtime to just be like, man, I miss being back home. And I did miss Emily, of course, but I was able to kind of fill some of that with the newfound friends I had. And so it was very difficult for Emily. She had probably a lot harder than I did that first year, but it was still difficult for the guy as well. And so I had to learn not only to trust Emily, that probably wasn't as big for me as learning to communicate with Emily. I had to let her know I'm still here, I still love you, and I still want to be a part of your life. I still find you captivating, and I want to be there for all those moments, even if I'm not actually there. And so one of the things that we did that helped us was setting FaceTime dates. Probably not as many as we should have. And she probably wanted to have more than I was ready to have. Not ready to have, but like desiring, like, oh, I don't know, every day is a lot. But it's just a difference in communication styles, and you have to recognize that what worked for us may not be the same thing for you. I am not someone that has to like talk to someone 24/7 to let them know I still love them. Emily likes to be in that constant communication, so we had to learn where we both were and bridge that gap. And the FaceTime dates definitely helped with that. So I would recommend, whether it's FaceTime dates or calling, whatever it is, have regularly scheduled times. What were you gonna say?
Because I feel like with long distance, like thinking of your love languages, like you can't have quality time. I mean, you could, but it's only through
very different.
Talking. You can't have physical touch. You can't hold hands while you're long distance.
Which, quick part on that was a blessing for us. Emily and I, we're gonna have a whole video about this later on, but we struggled with sexual temptation early on in our relationship. And we were still virgins when we got married, and all in the sense of, you know, today's definition of being a virgin. But we made mistakes, some pretty big mistakes that we still hold with us today in our marriage. Obviously, God has forgiven us, and that is an awesome thing. But mistakes have consequences. Sin has consequences, and some of those, you know, stick with you. So I would definitely recommend, one, if you're not married, don't be, you know, having sex. That's a totally different topic. But two, long distance kind of helped with us not having to be constantly trying to like hold each other apart and not like be touchy and all these things. We can do that now we're married. So that was just a side note of like long distance was actually helpful in our struggle against sexual temptation.
So number 3 is communication, which we kind of already touched on that, but
just like the day-to-day stuff.
And like I know, like what we said earlier, like you can't know everything that the person is doing, but just knowing like, hey, did you have a good day today? Or hey, is there something new that came up today that was exciting that you want to tell me about? Some good news or bad news if you had a bad day. Just things like that, just so that you guys are still connected in some way.
Totally. And asking them, what do you need? Well, I'm not there, so what do you need to hear? Do you need affirmation? Do you need encouragement? And it can be kind of cheesy. At first, it can be like, oh, what do you need? Do you need me to affirm you? I love you. But when you do it a lot, when you make practice of it, it kind of becomes a natural thing, and it keeps you in tune with your significant other. And
just realizing what you even need in the first
in your own life. And one thing, Emily talked about it when she talked about trust, but making sure that long distance is a great thing to make sure that you are not too dependent on your significant other or your girlfriend or boyfriend. Dating is a beautiful thing, but it's not marriage. Marriage is that time when you become one and you do become somewhat dependent on your partner, but still ultimately dependent on God. And so in your dating relationship, you should even more so be setting up not only physical boundaries like we talked about, but emotional boundaries. So it's good to communicate. Don't, you know, hear us and say, oh, don't communicate at all. But if you're having to call them every hour to just see what they're doing and keeping tabs on everything, that's unhealthy. And that's an unpopular opinion, but it's unhealthy to be super in each other's business all the time when you're just dating. You should, to feel that need to be talking with them. You should have separate lives, obviously still lives that are together. This is whether you're long distance or not. But for the most part, dating isn't not for the most part. Dating isn't marriage.
Not, I know that was something that was like oh, I know it's not, but it's like, we want to be married, so
like, right?
No, it was really hard, but I had to just like talk to myself all the time to say, no, we're not married, we're just dating, and this is not, like, we aren't one. So. And
if you are young, like we're still young, but when we were dating, we were even younger. If you're at that age of 17 to 20 or 21, this is the time in your life where you're like learning still so much about yourself. And so it's great to be in a relationship, and there's so many beautiful God-honoring things that can come from that. But make sure that you're more focused on your relationship with Christ and God, less so than your girlfriend or boyfriend. I think one of the other things that we had was make time to meet in the middle. So for our kind of our fourth biggest thing, meet in the middle. It's hard. We lived 5 hours away. For the most part, I would just drive up because I had a place to stay. We're not married, so we couldn't go get a hotel room or something and meet in the middle. And so we'd stay at my parents' house and have a weekend together, and even if it was just one full day together, it was very refreshing, and it made us appreciate each other's time and just presence that much more.
And also, if you can't meet in the middle necessarily, if you drive all the way to someone, then just trying to find a friend that's of the same sex to go stay the night at their place is very helpful, because at night I feel like is whenever a lot of the temptation comes.
Gotcha. Yeah.
And so
we had that when Emily would come to my college. There was a friend that I had. She was a really nice woman. Her name's Katie. She's married now. And Emily actually stayed at her place when we were freshmen because she couldn't stay in my dorm. So just setting up boundaries, like Emily's saying, to make sure that you're not putting yourself in unnecessary temptation. So just to recap, if you are thinking about being in a relationship, one, examine the other person, but first examine yourself. Are you ready to be in a relationship? Are you ready to like get married if you find out that this person is the one for you? Also, pray about it. Is this something you should do? Definitely pray about it.
And then discernment with it.
And then feel free to use some of our ideas on what helped us, right? Trust the other person, communicate, set up FaceTime dates, and meet in the middle. There's nothing like being actually around that person. So
But thank you guys so much for watching. We hope that these tips helped you guys. And if you guys have any questions with your personal relationship or anything, we'd love to help you with that. I try to go through my messages, but sometimes it is difficult. But I do want to do that because I want to pour into you guys and help you guys, since we had been through that same exact thing.
Exactly. So comment below. Just like Emily said, it's hard to filter through all the Instagram requests and everything, but comment below some of those ideas. This was actually an idea from our past YouTube video comment section. So comment future video ideas, comment your thoughts on long distance relationship, if you've ever been one, if you haven't been in one, why you would or why you wouldn't, and we'd love to look at those and possibly talk about it in the next video.
But thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll see you guys next time.
Bye.